welcome to another episode of our Daily Bread Ministries Teens podcast. My name is Nuhu Gaina. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm so glad that you are here. Our mission is to make the life-changing wisdom of the Bible understandable and accessible to all. Our vision is to see people of all nations experiencing a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, growing to be more like him and serving in a local body of his family. Now, this podcast is for teens just like you who are looking for real conversations about faith, about life, and everything that's in between. Each week, we dig into a topic that matters to you, something that you might be thinking about or even dealing with in your own life. And we look at it through the lens of our faith in Jesus. So today, I want to talk to you about something that we all face: tough times. We're diving into trusting God in difficult times. How can we trust God in difficult times when it feels confusing or overwhelming? Let me ask you something. Have you ever gone through a really hard time and asked yourself the question, where is God in all of this? Maybe things were going on very well and then boom, life just hits you with something you didn't even see coming. Maybe you were trusting God for the healing of a loved one and then suddenly they passed away. Whatever it is, I think we've all been there. And life throws us difficult situations, and sometimes it feels like God is just nowhere to be found. And that's what makes it so hard to trust him, right? Like, God, if you love me, why is this happening? Well, here's the thing. God doesn't promise that life will always be smooth for us, but he does promise to be with us through the tough times. So how do we hold on to that when it feels like everything is falling apart? Let's take a deep dive into this. There are three things we need to keep in mind when we're trying to trust God, especially during tough times. Trust is built in the small moments. That's the first thing. You know how when you're building a friendship, right? Trust doesn't just happen overnight. No, it takes time and shared experiences. The same is true with our relationship with God. If we only try to trust God when life is falling apart or when life is difficult, we're going to struggle. But if we start trusting God in the small everyday moments, it's like building up that muscle. Okay, that way, when hard times come, it's easier for us to lean on God. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 to 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight." Now, notice that it says, in all your ways. Now, that means the small moments as well, not just the big crises of our lives. When we trust God in the little things, like, asking for his help with a school project or a test that you're having, or having a conversation with your friend, it helps us to trust him when the bigger issues come. God sees the bigger picture. And here's the hard part. We usually don't always understand why things happen. Like, seriously, sometimes life doesn't make sense to us, but God sees the whole story. He sees the whole picture. He sees the big picture. He sees the end from the beginning. It's like when you're doing a puzzle, you're putting a puzzle together. Usually we're focused on one piece of the puzzle, but God sees the entire picture. In Isaiah 55, verse 8 to 9, God says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, and neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." This verse reminds us that really, even when we don't understand why some things are happening, God knows. He has a plan. He's working everything out for our good. And so even when we can't see it, God is still working. It's okay to have doubts. Let's be real. Trusting God doesn't mean that we'll never have doubts. We would be lying to ourselves if we say that. In fact, doubt is actually a part of faith. The key is really to bring those doubts to God. There's a story in the Bible about a man who came to Jesus for healing. And this is what he said. He says, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. You find that in Mark chapter 9. It's such a powerful reminder that we don't have to have perfect faith all the time to trust God. It's okay to admit when we're struggling. It's okay to admit that we don't get it or that we're frustrated. God isn't afraid of our, doubts. And he's not going to just walk away from us just because we have questions in our lives. Instead, he actually invites us to lean in closer to him, to lean on him, to bring those doubts to him and let him guide us through. Now, some of the common questions that we can have about this are number one, but why does God allow bad things to happen in the first place? That's a really tough question. And it's one that people have been battling with for centuries. But here's what I've learned over the years in my walk with God. We believe that, we actually live in a broken world. Sin has messed up a lot of things. And sometimes bad things just happen simply because we live in that brokenness. But even in the middle of it, God is still good, and he can use even the worst situations to bring about something that is beautiful. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that in all things, not some things, in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. Now, that doesn't mean everything will feel good, right? Or make sense all the time. But it means that God is working behind the scenes for our good. So what's the bottom line here? Trusting God in difficult times, is not about having all the answers or knowing what's good or what's going to happen rather next. It's really about believing that God is with you, even when life is confusing, and trusting that he's working out a bigger plan. Okay, this week, I really want to challenge you to practice trusting God in the small things in your life. Maybe it's praying before a test that you have, or asking God to help you through something that's really bothering you. Start building that trust in the everyday moments. And when the bigger challenges come, you'll be more prepared to lean on him. So remember that trusting God is a journey, right? You're not going to get it perfectly every time, and that's okay. The important thing is to keep turning back to God, even when it's hard. Before we wrap up, we would really love to hear from you. What's something that you're going through right now that's testing your trust in God? We'd like to hear your story. Or if you have a question, you can ask it by sending a message, sending us an email. The email will be in the description below. All right? So just send us an email or a comment. We want this space to be a place where we can learn and grow together. So don't forget, you can subscribe to this podcast, but also you can share with your friends so that they can also find encouragement as you are also getting encouragement. Thank you so much for your time here, and I'll see you in the next episode.